welcome to the second webinar in our series, Restoring Country, Exploring Indigenous-led Participation in Mine Closure and Environmental Services. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar and the Yurruga Turrbal traditional owners and their custodianships of the land on which we are meeting today, and the traditional owners of the land in which you are joining us. On behalf of our team, I pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognise their valuable contributions to Australia and globally. I'm Caroline Williams, Yamaji woman from the Midwest Murchison and Gascoyne region. I have a background in Aboriginal economic development, education and health. My role at the CRC Time is Engagement Manager First Nations, and I'm the moderator for today. So we're looking at the agenda, just to take note that we're going to do a few housekeeping things, introductions, setting the scene. We'll get to the panel and then we'll close after the audience have done their questions with a bit of a summary. So just to note that we are recording this webinar and we'll be uploading the video to YouTube. We want this series to remain available as a knowledge resource into the future. This webinar series is a joint initiative of CRC Time and the Centre for Social Responsibility in Mining, or CSRM. Briefly, CRC Time is a partner of more than 75 collaborating organisations from research, industry, government, community and suppliers, whose aim is to work together to deliver a bold vision to unite Australia's regions in the development and delivery of economic, social and environmentally resilient post-mining futures. CSRM is part of the Sustainable Minerals Institute at the University of Queensland. Roger and Julia are part of a team of around 30 researchers at the centre who are dedicated to examining social and community issues related to resource extraction. Please wave, Roger and Julia. Okay, so for those who have missed the first webinar in the series, it is now available on YouTube and we'll share the link in the chat. The first webinar featured Indigenous leaders responding to CSIRO's research highlighting the economic opportunities available through closure and rehabilitation. It raised the question, if there is billions in expenditure on mine closure solutions, how do First Nations groups get a competitive advantage? This session noted a range of holistic benefits restoring country brings for Indigenous ranges and for communities. A key point raised was that there is no visibility over partnerships and what is required so we can build those genuine partnerships. A key question posed by the panel was, what do some of these opportunities look like on the ground? We hope to dive a bit further into these conversations through online discussions. In this series, we explore the opportunities closure and environmental services in the mining industry presents as we hear from people that have led initiatives and to take up those opportunities, as well as people who are doing the work on the ground. Our panellist today is Craig Lorosinol. Craig is a Southern Arrernte Durinji man and traditional owner for his Oak Valley homeland, 100 kilometres south of Alice Springs. His parents pioneered Indigenous tourism in Central Australia, running the popular Oak Valley tours. Being from the land, Craig knows the value and pride that comes from working on country. He has developed land management skills and experience over 10 years with the Central Land Council, growing the Indigenous Ranger program. He currently leads the CLC Ranger Works, a unique and innovative initiative that contracts fee-for-service to mining companies and government agencies, drawing on talent from ranger groups and other local Aboriginal people. We also have Lachlan Johnson, who is the Superintendent for the Land and Rehabilitation at Rio Tinto's Weipa bauxite operations. He has a background in environmental management and commenced in 2008. Working across government and resource sector, Lockie has worked with the Land and Sea Management Program at the Amrun bauxite mine since the transition of the program from construction to operations. We also have Marcus Payne. Marcus is a specialist for the Land and Sea Management Program at Rio Tinto's Weipa bauxite operations. Marcus manages the local stakeholder management plan at Rio Tinto's newest mine, the Amrun bauxite mine. The LS MP is an innovative foundational element of AmRun, with the program being developed in collaboration with the Wik and Wikwaya traditional owners. In managing the program, Marcus is responsible for realising the vision for traditional owners, working and participating in land management and cultural heritage management within AmRun. So a couple of people that were meant to be involved today, unfortunately, were not able to make it, and that is Nancy Davis and Belinda Barney and Dominic Badwi. But we also have Steve Sharp, who is the Manager of Regional Development Transition of Argyle Closure. He has extensive experience with Indigenous land management in the Kimberley region through his works with the Indigenous Land Corporation and supporting establishment of the Kimberley Land Council's Indigenous Ranger Program. As Manager for Regional Development, he supported the startup of the Argyle Ranger Program from its inception in 2019. So first up, we will hear from Roger Barnes, who will set the scene for us by providing an overview of prior CSRM research in this space, and also will give the background to some of the relevant programs, mine sites and initiatives. Roger will then lead a discussion with the panelists by asking the panelists to share their perspectives on establishing local Indigenous groups for mine environmental management and rehabilitation, engaging and working with mining operations, including benefits and barriers, benefits and opportunities in the future. Before we jump in, let me just say to please be considerate. Try to keep your questions on topic and put them in the chat. You can also share any references or comments in the chat as we go, and we'll get to those at the end of the panel discussion. For your information, we'll also be producing a summary report at the completion of the series to capture key points, issues for further discussion, and lessons learned. Okay, now over to Roger to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. I'm Roger Barnes. I'm a researcher at the University of Queensland in the Centre for Social Responsibility in Mining. And we, at the Centre, CSRM for short, we had a research partnership with a range of companies that looked at mine closure more broadly. And within that study, I was involved in research looking at what opportunities there are for Indigenous groups, particularly local Indigenous groups who are proximal to the mine sites. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of that, but it's relevant because what we're talking about in this webinar is being influenced by the CSIRO report that the CRC Time commissioned, and that was the feature of the first webinar. So this is a bit of a quick recap, and that's the report there. It's available online. But they gave us a nice definition here called mine closure solutions, which includes equipment and technology services that enable mine closure and transitions. So they've kind of opened our thinking to a whole broad range of domains, which include, as shown in that diagram with mine closure solutions in the middle, they've cast this as there being 4 domains around engagement, a domain in waste recovery, and post-mine land use. And the 4th one I've highlighted there is mine rehabilitation, because that's really where we were situated with the work that we did. But I wanted to locate it in the CSIRO report because that's generated a lot of interest in this topic. So one of the key things the CSIRO report says, there's the outlook is $4 billion a year across those domains of value, but that of spend that the mining industry will be happening. So with, even if Indigenous groups get hold of 10% of that, you're looking at quite a significant economic value. So just bearing in mind that this webinar, we're sort of situated in that mine rehabilitation domain. And one thing we go to the next slide, is to look at where we found, when we looked around and found where is this substantial activity with local groups working on mines. I put up 6 sort of main sites. That's not all. That's just, these are the ones we have data on and a little bit familiar with. The green ones are the people in the room, so we'll hear from Argyle, Central Australia, and Amrun. But I did want to just quickly touch on the other ones, which is Jundee, Woodcutters, and Ranger. And the point is to demonstrate that there's a range of different mines, different commodities, different styles of mining, and locations where the mine is on its mine life cycle. So something like Argyle, end of life, but an operating mine like Jundee is still conducting progressive rehabilitation on waste dumps and that sort of thing. So the point is, closure is not an event. Closure is thought about at the beginning of the mine. It's obviously something that happens post-production, but it's the whole, we understand best practice with closure is getting the thinking about it at the very early stages of mine closure, of the mine life cycle from exploration. So just let me, because you'll hear from Argyle, Central Australia, and Amrun, just go to the next slide and we'll quickly have a look at Jundee, because that was the sort of ground zero, the type sort of case that sort of drew our attention, because it was established back in 2010, this arrangement. This is a contracting service provided by Desert Support Services, which managed a range of ranger groups, but then were able to put together a team that would attend the mine on a regular basis for fee for service, 1 week every month for 10 months a year. And they did a range. When I was there, they were doing a lot of water testing, the depth of the water monitoring bores around the tailings dam that you see at the background in the top photo. So that's Jundee. That's the type of setup there. Just moving to Woodcutters, and you recall from the previous site, this was a mine that's finished, so there was limited or no Aboriginal engagement during the life of mine. But when Newmont took it over, they ended up with this as a legacy site, lead zinc, single pit, hole in the ground, got filled in because of the lead and the acid mine drainage. Some capping needed to be done, and the pit from where the capping materials, topsoil came from, became a water feature which filters the water that's coming off the site, and that involved the Warai and Kungarinkan people in those tasks, right? And they're involved in the ongoing monitoring of that site. And quickly looking at Ranger, that's live now. We have a bit of data on that, but all the key thing there is Kakadu native plants. They're supplying a whole range of plants for the revegetation, and through that work, the NLC's also created a cultural connection committee. So there's sites that we know that are happening. And the next slide will help bring the panelists in, because this is where they are from. So we've got Craig from Central Australia. There's some other people shown there, and the Walpri North Tanami Ranger Group. The point about Central Australia is that it's Aboriginal land. There's a Central Land Council, and they've got a range of at least 9 ranger groups. Craig will tell us more, but there's an innovative part of that is Ranger Works, which is where those groups interact with miners and other organisations like Parks and Wildlife, providing fee for service. Argyle. We've got Steve here to tell us more about it. That's their crew. One of the questions is that the Argyle, do we refer to them at the Argyle Rangers, or is that the environmental team shown there? But there's quite a unique story there at Argyle. Argyle Diamond Mine, end of life, and we're seeing this initiative with the local Indigenous groups there. And the third one, where Lockie and Marcus are from, that's Amrun. It's way up the top, Weeper. That's the new bauxite mine where they've been mining there, Rio Tinto, for 50, 60 years. But this new mine includes the land and sea management program, which is an Indigenous crew. We'll hear about that, but that's the situate Amrun, Argyle, and Central Australia in the sort of group of known sites. Thanks, Carolyn. We've got that's Steve's provided us with this picture of Argyle, and he will talk to these in a little bit when we start the panel session. And there's a montage of photos that I think we'll need to go back to once Steve starts talking about it. So show us on the next slide, just a little preview. Yeah. So that's sort of trying to set up the domain, the sort of area of what we want to talk about today. And yeah, specifically Indigenous groups, local Indigenous groups providing these services. It's not philanthropic. It's work that needs to be done. And we're going to hear from the panelists now. So we can close the slide so we can. And what I'm thinking, we'll go reverse alphabetical order, which puts Craig in the firing line. But yeah, like I was saying, you've got a range of groups there. There's 9 groups, but there's this Ranger works, and we're really keen to hear about how Ranger works, and specifically, what is it that you do, and can you talk about your work and the main activities that you're involved in? Thanks, Craig.
No worries. Everyone can hear me? Well, the CLC, as everyone knows, is a representative body for our people in and around mostly the southern part of the Northern Territory. The Ranger program's now been in some debated around 20. The others, we've got 2 groups that argue that they're the longest serving ones, 10 years plus. So there's some good rivalry that keeps us up and going. Our main goal in the Ranger program is the caring for country aspect, where we get affected by a range of things, be it the modern vehicles and stuff like that, going back to ancient introduced animals and so forth that damage quite a fair bit of our sacred sites and in general widespread country damage. Mines, I guess, in a mining in a modern type of way has some effect in those areas. It's a strange thing that a lot of sites that are valued to us has in a long structure has monetary value to the new world. So I guess we get caught in the middle space of how do we live with it, around it, and in it, I guess. Me personally, I'd rather go around the outside, but I see the necessary work that needs to be done in rehabilitating and getting our land back up to scratch in a sense, and but having the guidance of our standing senior people, allowing us to go there and with their guidance and using the modern elements to work together and try and combat some of the things that we face today. Ranger Works is quite a unique little invention, if I could call it that. It sort of came out of I want for us to have employment on our homelands when we got our areas back during the 80s and so forth like that. We're always seeing contractors of all shapes and sizes coming in with labourers and so forth like that, and unfortunately, a lot of the time we had to sit there and watch. We got to the point of let's be involved and let us be the labourers. So with any outside contractor, be it from Alice Springs or Adelaide or wherever, well, we always said that we had a workforce here ready, standing. You don't need full degree to dig a hole or knock in a dropper. So exclusion things and stuff like that were very easy for us to do. We grow up in the cattle industry, dare I say it, and all those things come second nature to us. But we also see underfoot the damage that's been done by the cattle industry too across our area. So yeah, that needs quite a bit of looking after also. Mining, we understand that brings and involves income. Sometimes not everyone agrees with it, but like I said earlier, we sort of have to live with it. Through the ranger groups being developed roughly around, I'll just go in the middle here now, I'll just say 15 years. We have roughly around 12 to 13 groups now, with a couple of them merging now to the south and to the west of us from Alice Springs as well, around the mainly on the IPAs, Indigenous protected areas. And yeah, there's a never-ending line of mining on the way. So in my area, particularly as well to the south of us, of Alice Springs, we have a mine there that's in its infancy, and also to the north of us, also rare earth mine and so forth like that. Living in a place like this, you tend to have relations from all points. And so in all these sites, we have family members who are a lot younger and haven't had that experience in talking to outside agencies and how to express themselves to that. So with our bit of experience, we just try and guide those younger people in like how to negotiate in a nice way without throwing things all over the place and walking out and have no outcomes, which sometimes happens. Yeah, we tend to have big meetings with lots of people that have lots of things to say. But across in the mining space and stuff, we do with Ranger Works, like I said, that was developed as a way to employ the TO that's sitting on the veranda and always watching someone else come and work, and usually run away with your shovel and all, so you have a look around and like, where's that shovel? Oh, it's gone to Adelaide now. so you got to get another one. So just creating that little tight knit family thing like a ranger group, and as Ranger Works does now, we have our own equipment that we can supply. And in CLC and so forth as well, we have all the water monitoring equipment. All of our ranger groups have trapping techniques that we use for the animals within our particular areas as well. We need to keep them going as part of our long-term connection to our landscape. Our totemic figures are our guiders in most of our ways, so we have to be very careful of the spots and things that we go to, always having senior people with us. Rehab, we really haven't done that much. We've done a little bit for Northern Star out nearly on the WA border, and that was just repatriating roads back into the landscape. We created our own little hookup or drag system, if you want to call it that, an ex drag auger off a bobcat, but we managed to manipulate it to drag off the back of the Toyota. And in the other terms, like the Tanami mines and things like that, we constantly have the rangers from either from Yundamu or Larger Manu that go out there and constantly monitoring with water and the animals on the landscape. If need be, in a lot of areas, cultural burning has to occur as well, and that quite a bit of that has been happening of late as well, further out towards the WA border, sort of like due west from us, and that's for exploration purposes and so forth. But we still have to have that guidance from our senior people to talk to country and stuff, and to let us know whether it's okay to light it up, and
Yep.
and hear the stories straight out too from those old people. It's a bit different to having a monetary value on your life than I like to say to visitors and people that I meet, we don't own anything, we belong. It's a bit of a different mind game, in that sense. You belong there. Earth tells you to be born there, and everyone before you. So I guess it's our responsibility then to, learn that landscape and learn what it's about, and to guide our next ones, our little ones, into that space as well. It's going to be way harder for them. They've got everything now that you can press a button on, and they think that where the real world lies, but
Yeah.
it actually doesn't.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Craig.
No worries.
We'll circle back and interrogate some of those themes with you. We should hear from Steve, the Argyle team. What can you tell us about that and what they do, and the activities and the structure of how it works?
Sure. Thanks, Roger. And also just acknowledge the traditional owners. There's two major groups that we work with closely at Argyle, the Gidja group to the south and the Mirrawong group to the north, both who have established ranger teams funded through various mechanisms. But here at Argyle, back in 2019, when we were sort of very rapidly ramping up towards closure to occur late 2020, our agreement with traditional owners says that we will support the development of local people to look after country after the mining. So we set up a training program, and we engaged 6 people, of which 4 people have come through that program to do a Cert 2 and conservation land management, and became Rio Tinto employees, literally working on the site in the closure project. So it might be helpful, given Domino, who was going to talk today, is unfortunately, apology, he's not feeling well, and Nancy is also otherwise engaged. So I feel I'm sort of talking about people and they're not talking about them themselves. So hence I put those pictures together. Maybe we could slip back to those pictures, and it might be really helpful just to talk directly to a bit of a snapshot of the kind of work that they do, if that's okay, Caroline. And just while that's coming up, the arrangements that we have with traditional owners is we have a forum where we have a good governance arrangement called a relationship committee with traditional owners, and that meets quarterly. But in the lead up to closure, given there's such a huge change after 40 years of mining at Argyle, the closure team ramped up a lot of engagement and to help inform the mine closure plan. And as part of that engagement, the whole concept of the Argyle Rangers came about in terms of talking to the old people and saying, well, what would you like to do, given there are 2 ranger groups on both sides of this bit of country? And they were pretty keen to have an Argyle Ranger team, which is made up of representatives from both groups. So we've helped to facilitate that. And now we're moving into a phase where the traditional owners will take more of an active role in determining the future of that group. Rio has supported the training and then the employment and the building of skills and capability to do various things, such as you'll see in this picture here. There's a whole range of stuff going on. That top right picture, I'm pretty sure that's the engagement with the Amron crew early in the piece when we were sort of sharing information and so on with the Amron team. There was some regular video conferencing done, especially during COVID. Machinery quals, the top sort of center left there, getting tickets on things like skid steers, etc. Weed control to the left there, supporting the very strong cross-cultural program here at Argyle. Ever since day one, we've been doing smoking ceremonies. The locals call it Muntha, and cross-cultural programs. It's on the top left there. Bottom left is seed collection. there. We've helped the Gilganium Trust, which has established a seed collection business. Rio supported that business to get up and running, and they supply a majority of the seed for the Argyle project. So we're looking at 13 tons of seed to be collected over a period of time to rehab the place. There's sort of center left picture towards the bottom with the rocks in the background. That was an engagement with the Gidja Rangers to the south. Went out and did some field work with them. The bottom right there is water sampling or water monitoring. That's one of the dams we have here at Argyle, just working with the environment team, helping out with water monitoring, sampling, and the rangers have the accountability for the once a month recording of all the critical samples around site and sending that off to be analysed to maintain a record of that. And the bottom right there is supporting the seed team again with more seed collection. So a whole range of skills and interactions with other ranger groups. The team went out and joined the Kimberley Ranger Forum, joined up with the KLC Rangers across the region, and a lot more to come that will be increasingly guided by the old people and Gilganium, which is a trust entity which represents the interests of the traditional owners. I'd sort of go, I suppose, the highlights of the work.
Well, that we just
go into that. Yeah.
No, we'll wait for that. That was a nice overview, and we can see people working across a range of domains, from water, ecology, some earthworks there. What's that one with the up the top next to the smoke, and he's doing something to a tree?
That's there's a kind of species of tree on the site called a neem tree, an introduced highly invasive weed species, and he's preparing the tree to drill a hole into the trunk of the tree to put a pellet of herbicide inside the tree, and it's the only way to kill, or one of the most effective ways to kill the larger trees. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Well, thanks, Steve. We'll circle back, and Carolyn would get eyes on Lockie and Marcus. Yeah, what can you tell us about the Amrun Land and Sea Management Program in terms of your work and your main activities that you're undertaking?
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, just firstly acknowledging the 11 different traditional owner groups where we work and live across our operations, and specifically today the Wick and Wickway people who are the traditional custodians of our Amrun mine. I'll pass to Marcus to I guess give an overview of the project and what the team does, and similar to Steve, I guess we're speaking on behalf of and not for.
Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Marcus Payne, land and sea specialist down at Amrun. So yeah, we've got a ranger program set up down there where we've got solely made up of traditional owners. We've got supervisors and the crew who participate in all the land management activities down there. So some of the work programs we have are weed control, feral animal control. We've got progressive rehabilitation as well throughout the mine. Also, we have a turtle program. Every year we monitor the turtles coming up to nest on the beaches, which is one of the favourites, and we get to share with everyone else from around the mine as well. We find that's a really good engagement piece for visitors to site, and a bit of reward and recognition for other teams as well. So we also conduct on-ground burning programs throughout, just in asset protection and sort of greater lease protection as well. There's also some programs, we do community seed collection as well, which is managed through the land rehabilitation team. So yeah, that's pretty much a summary of all the different work programs we have on. It's really great, we get these guys out there, get them exposure to working in the mining industry, and develop new skills, so they get upskilling on new machinery, and we run tractors and different equipment for our rehabilitation works, ATVs along the beach for our turtle surveys and stuff like that. So really broad range of work that we conduct.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. We're seeing that Argyle and Amrun, these are mine employees wearing Rio Tinto shirts. They're inside the company, they're employees, they're set up by the company. So I'm just going back to Craig, it's slightly different in the centre, isn't it? Where there are many functioning ranger groups, but they're primarily concerned with their land management activities. But there's this I just want to find out what was driving the commercial interactions, because when we were there for the SIA in 2018, the Northern Tanami Rangers were coming down and doing the water monitoring at the central Tanami mine site. Now, from the mine site's point of view, that saved them flying up highly paid ecological consultants to do this. And from what I understand, because there's that money involved, that could go to that ranger group, and they bought a small machine that could push tracks into areas where they could conduct their land management activities using the proceeds from that interaction. So can you just tell us, like, about the commercial drivers, or what is it that driving ranger works? And it's also, I think you're saying it's not just ranger groups you're pulling from. You're also saying you're bringing people from the outstations or whoever around who are not technically rangers, but you're creating these teams in response to the demand for work. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. We do a wide range of fee-for-service stuff, like with parks and so forth, like that. After heavy, rains or fires and things like that, we, help to do. I guess put in brakes and stuff like that to try and combat the next one. But like with the gas companies and stuff too, we do pipeline inspections that go from Marini all the way up to Elliot. And that's visual inspections that we record through tablets and so forth, and send back to the pipeline authorities that will then send out their fully qualified crew, save us digging a hole and poking a hole in the gas line. We leave that one to them. But I guess it's about longevity of employment, and when I brought that the idea of let us be the labourer into my workspace at CLC, and I explained that it'd be quite simple but really rewarding for us because we'll be involved. So then our developed structure, then, like if I work close by to one of the ranger groups in the area and we're doing this stuff, we actually code it to them, like you said earlier. And then the fee that comes back through goes specifically to that group because of their effort, and once again to extend them a little bit, to get maybe a new shed or new gear for really backing ourselves up for the future, I guess, So that was the main goal of not just sitting watching all the time, but to be involved and learning to talk with others outside of our own realm, because most of the time we watch everyone going past, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And you think, like, how can I get involved? So some of us silly ones, as I call us, we come up with throwing a stone idea, and sometimes it works. But the benefit that you can see, like when you first go out on a site somewhere and the senior traditional owners are there with you, they're usually involved in all the initial meetings and stuff that just gets too overpowering for some people. And then when you say, no, we're just here to work today, you just see people start beaming, and they're like, oh, that's good. No meeting today, just work. and it just helps to drive people, and I guess once again with us some middle-aged ones now, we can only keep encouraging our younger ones that are maybe involved in this industry. I have 3 sons involved, 2 in the gold mining industry and 1 in the gas industry, and I'm on the other side of the coin, really. I'd prefer to do stuff with the landscape rather than in it or under it.
You mentioned the pipeline. That's quite a long distance, isn't it? That's several hundred kilometres. So you have to reconstitute the groups and to monitor that pipeline. And and what do they get out of it? Like, how do they enjoy the work or not?
Well, once again, the electronic world is here with us, and some of we go through 1, 2, 3, about six different language groups from here to Elliot, and so each area, of course, has different type of connection and language, of course. So if I can employ a ranger from each of those, a ranger or two, to come on this trip with us, it allows them to have their space, to say, right, that's my turn now, so you might listen to me, sort of thing. And then we get good guidance from that, so for the future, and just by having a cup of tea by the fire in the middle of nowhere at night, you start realizing who the next ones are, the future, and which elder group to sort of like rely on and keep guiding us as well. So we can do that, those seven different language groups with doing the same job, of course, but a different view, because the landscape really it does change. So and with the we have a lot of introduced species of grasses and trees and things like that too now that we have to identify, and this is one big part of the pipeline inspection is to identify and mark and get rid of these invasive plants and things as well,
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for that. Yes. So, Steve, look, just that's a view from Central Australia. It's quite a robust Indigenous setting with many groups, but also in the Kimberley, there's the Kimberley Land Council, which I know has many groups. Can you just talk us through how Rio came to that the model that you're telling us about with your in-house group, and you mentioned some interactions with those other groups and how that works?
Sure. So as most people are aware, the Kimberley Land Council sort of helps prescribed body corporates and other groups set up ranger groups. I think there's about 15 of them now across the Kimberley, and ranging from some very highly successful groups getting a lot of fee-for-service activity happening down to some that are still funded by government predominantly. With Argyle, in the early engagement with traditional owners around the specific matter of setting up or enabling people nominated by the old people to gain skills in looking after country long term, it was decided by the traditional owners themselves that it was to go separately and seek support from Rio to set it up internally, not necessarily from the outset as employees of Rio, but that's how it evolved, because we wanted to secure the commitment to engaging the individuals and continue the capability and capacity building. So it's a different model, and it has been in some ways a bit of a challenge, because mining and large companies like Rio Tinto, it's a different world to working out in the bush as a ranger team. There are a whole bunch of policies and procedures and different aspects that go with mining that may not apply in a regional bush type context. So that's a bit of a challenge. And also in closure, we don't necessarily always have all of the resources that apply in operations, in terms of a large scale operation producing lots of turnover will have a lot more resources dedicated to training and employment programs, etc. So Argyle's leading the way in many ways in large scale mine closure, and this is one of the elements that we've sort of charged ahead with. But from the learnings from Argyle, some of the other Rio Tinto areas have put more support into supporting the Indigenous the existing ranger teams, the existing groups, and working towards supporting those groups to perhaps take on fee-for-service opportunities. And that is how it is looking to evolve at Argyle as well. We're in the final 2 years of executing the rehabilitation project and finishing all the decommissioning. And then in 2026, we'll move into the monitoring and maintenance phase. And we're having serious conversations right now with the old people around what does it look like? And there is a long-term fee-for-service opportunity in the monitoring maintenance phase for ongoing monitoring and maintenance of all the rehab. Rio's objective is, as it will be any mining company, is to meet certain criteria that are agreed to by government and traditional owners as to when the land can be relinquished. And that's the whole ultimate goal of mine closure, is to ultimately hand the land back in its entirety to government, traditional owners, whatever the decision's made. So that we're currently working with the groups to look at the work planning, the contracting strategy, etc., and the support that we can provide in partnership potentially with government and maybe the other range of groups as well. All of that still is yet to play out, but that's the intent.
Yeah. Okay. So we haven't got Dom here or Blandina, but can you give us a sense of what their experience may have been with coming on the side? It's quite, like you say, the mining industry very regimented, and I think you're still talking 12-hour days, are you? And that sense of achievement that must accompany, well, not only getting your qualification, but thriving. Well, you can tell us in that environment. What have you seen? Or what can you tell us that about the individuals who have experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of fundamental skill building and understanding of processes and procedure and a safe environment, doing things in a way where it's very structured. A lot of capacity and capability building there. But I suppose that the overriding theme is, given the individuals that were nominated to be in the program, they carry a lot of responsibility with them, because the traditional owners, the people who, the elders have said these are the individuals we want to be in that program. So they are very integral to our communication with traditional owners and what's going on. So there's a lot of weight placed on them in terms of responsibility about looking after country. So I think sometimes that's something that we need to constantly remember. But absolutely, the skill building and the I suppose the work readiness phase of things, that people have sort of come out of school and join a program like that, it's a really good base to start from to move into, and some good leadership development definitely happens in that space with that structure.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of certainty that goes with that structure, because you've got the control, I guess, is an aspect. But we want to hear from Amran as well, because you, like we were saying before, you're at the sort of front end of the life cycle, but with rehabilitation, progressive rehabilitation. But think about the sort of ranger ecosystem. I understand that what was it, Tony Kerrigan? Yeah, he really drove and wanted this to happen, and he wanted Rio to take responsibility for this group. Can you give us some insights on how that interaction with the surrounding sort of ecology works as well?
Yeah, for sure. So the Land and Sea Management Program was very much born out of the environmental impact assessment phase of the Amrun mine. So right back at the start, it was a desire of the senior traditional owners, and you've mentioned Uncle Tony. He was really instrumental in driving the want for the program, and specifically those activities that the ranger team members are now actively working on country doing. So the program commenced during the construction of Amrun, working in all those construction activities for turtle monitoring to assess light impacts during the construction, down on the beach checking that there was no issues with the dredging and the wharf building. They were out relocating orchids, so they're instrumental in that that construction phase. And in 2018-19, the teams were transitioned along with the rest of the operation from construction to ops, and the team sort of worked into that steady drumbeat of doing our routine activities. Whilst probably not the original intent, that the team members are now Rio Tinto employees. That was really driven by the team members themselves having that desire to want to belong to the program in its full intent. So that was something that I think occurred during 2020 and has really resulted in improved continuity of team members, their work and how long they've been in the team. And as Marcus said earlier, we do progressive rehabilitation on site here. So we've been doing rehab. The team's been doing rehab for the last 3 years. They're out and about learning those new skills. It's on our scale, it's pretty well corporate scale farming. We've got big tractors and seeders and fertilizer, and the team's also the one letting our seed pickers know when certain seeds are coming on across the broader lease. So they're that we're sort of, I guess our journey is almost the complete opposite of Argyle's and where it started. And I know that people I still work with today spend a lot of time with Steve and the team in the early phases, sort of really learning from each of the programs to see where they are now.
Yep. And just can we hear from Marcus? You're very close with the team members. Again, interested to understand sort of the experience of your members. I think you've got people from Arakoon and Napranum. Is that right? Can you give us a little?
Yeah, that's correct.
In the last
we've got
about 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, just by nature, I enjoy getting out and sort of being hands-on, spending a lot of time in the field, just being there to support the guys and assist them with their day-to-day work. As Steve mentioned earlier, as you can imagine, in the mining industry, there's lots of procedures and new processes these guys have got to learn. It's about spending time on the ground and just being there to support them, coach them through it. And I really enjoy that aspect of the role. Like, I'm not really one that spend the whole day in the office. I enjoy getting out and about and learning from those guys as well. I've learned a hell of a lot in the short time that I've been there about the country, in some of the story places, and some of the the cultural rules that they have in place for entry into those areas too. It's interesting to understand all that. It's I guess it's just being out there to support them.
Yeah. Thanks. Carolyn, you're winding this up now, is because there might be a question that you have while we've got the panel session happening.
Yeah, we've got a little bit more time before we jump into the audience questions. So a question that I could ask. So from a general management, corporate management perspective, how important or what sort of value do companies see in this work? So do they support you? And what do you want to see from others in order to keep going?
I'm probably happy to jump in and throw an answer in this. I think if I use an example, when our team members converted from contractors to Rio Tinto employees, we had our former CEO specifically come to site and award them their Rio Tinto shirt. So I think for me, that's the testament of how important it is to the business and of what it means overall to ensuring that we're respecting the land on which we work and respecting the wishes of the senior traditional owners that worked really, really hard to ensure that the program was developed and continues to exist.
Okay, another question is, what role do the local Aboriginal organisations like PBCs play in this work? Anyone could answer.
I'm not too sure on our part with the PBCs over here. There's quite a few of them, but no doubt the corporations involved would have to receive some guidance from there as well.
From a closure perspective, I think it's all about the transition. You have when you have an operating mine, it's an ongoing process. There's the budgeting, there's the processes of adding community engagement and so on. In closure, I think right from the start of closure, you need to think about, well, what are we going to transition this to? Because we're going to finish up rehabilitating, we're going to do all of that. What does the relinquishment plan look like? So it's making sure that there's a plan to hand over ownership of genuine looking after country. And I think a large mining company with all its systems and processes sometimes struggles with letting go of control, and finding that right balance with working with local people is definitely the way to go in the closure type space. And don't leave it too long. You need to have a plan for that transitionary piece from the start.
Okay. Can smaller companies do this kind of work? And do you see this? And would that be possible?
Yeah, from my point of view, here, I think our goal at Ranger Works CLC is to try and inspire all those that are sitting out there wanting to do it, and to see that it's achievable. You know, like the training that we receive through our Ranger programs and stuff like that should, after quite a few years, enable us, like with a bit of a hand from some knowledgeable ones out there, to create these systems and entities, I guess, to fully encompass all these opportunities, I'll call them, and become just, you know, major workforce really, and to extend, like Steve just said, you know, there's a start, but there's always an end, not really an end. It's and that needs to be addressed just as much as the start, I guess. So hopefully we can, you know, in a couple more years, we can have these groups bouncing across the landscape and offering themselves through the. But once again, like everyone says, the regime of sticking to the rules on a mine site and stuff like that, when you're liable to be just blown across the flat by a piece of wind, and some of our people still do that. Forget to call in, you know, and just leave and go home, sort of thing. And you got to, I guess, as the leader, you have to wear that, and then the explanations of, you know, the repercussions of what that might entail is a bit hard. When you got a bit of language, it's right, you can break it down a bit, but a lot of English is still hard to get through out this way sometimes.
Okay, well, maybe we'll go to the audience questions in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for that interesting discussion. There are some questions in there, and I encourage people to add some more in if they would like. Just looking at these now, I think a few of them are for you, Craig. So, Craig, what specific activities do rangers undertake in these mine closure sites? You probably already mentioned it by a bit, but if you want to just recap.
Yeah, on mute,
Sorry,
mate.
you're on mute.
Sorry. I don't think there was even a ranger group thought about when the mines were closing down up and around Tennant Creek. So it just sort of like happened, you know.
Are you involved in any activities at Tennant Creek where there is closed mines?
Not so much up close to them, but they're talking about reopening some up there. So I'm guessing we're going to try and stick our foot in the door there too. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought there again. Sorry.
Well, one clue's back at Central Tanami. They infilled a lot of pits there as part of their exiting. And there's the monitoring bores around those infilled pits that is the North Tanami Ranges we talked about before. Is that still going? And is that
not at a real large scale at the moment, but no doubt in the future there's going to be a want and a need for us to step in, I guess, is the easiest way to put it, and you know, the creation of, like always said, you know, each mine site is really unique in a different area with different people. So, you know, and it could be male or female and things like that as well. So, you know, the in-depth understanding that comes from those older people, once again, push us through that. And yeah, I can't stress enough how beneficial it'll be to our future for our little grannies, you know, that are coming up. That's sort of going to have to live in two worlds as well, like us. And the more understanding I think we get now, as we didn't in the past, we understand the industries and the you know, connections to the wider world and so forth, and what it can do for us too.
Great. This next question, Craig, the previous Restoring Country webinar, one of the panelists pointed to the KPIs implemented by state government as a barrier to more effective range of programs. So because KPIs weren't necessarily connected to community determined outcomes, we're wondering just if this experience or views relating to this and how government and funding bodies should or could adjust their approach to compliance and KPIs to be better supporting range of programs.
I haven't really had any failings from our part, really, in that sense. We can only get stronger and that learning, you know, and we're backed by some really good people here in Central Australia and outside as well, our funding bodies and stuff like that you know, have once again that view of creating a future and longevity also. I'm getting a bit stuck for words, guys, sorry.
Does anyone else want to have a go at answering that one?
I'll jump in there, Caroline. So I was involved in some of the, not so much, a little bit of state, but some federal government funding in my role with the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation. And I think an easy one for that is, and I think it's a common theme across government, is more community engagement around setting the KPIs instead of a bureaucrat in the capital city just saying, right, these are the KPIs we're going to set to for your funding agreement, take it or leave it. It's around sitting down with people and spending time and saying, well, what do you think are effective KPIs, and then finding that balance between what the government thinks acceptable in return for funding the money and what the community think is achievable and realistic in terms of what the group is trying to achieve. So it's not just that better connection between the bureaucracy and what happens on the ground. It doesn't always happen, as we know.
Great, thank you. The next question for Craig is wondering about some of the organisations that you've partnered with to deliver Ranger Works projects, and also how has this program contributed to CLC's Ranger program more broadly? Oh, you're on mute, sorry, Craig.
Yeah, the opportunities and stuff that it creates, you know, tenfold, because once again, going back to that, the longevity of employment and so forth. Sorry, can I just have that question again? Sorry.
Yeah, it was regarding other organisations that you might have partnered with to deliver some of the Ranger Work projects.
Yeah, well, Northern Territory Parks and Wildlife, we do a fair bit with those people, a little bit out of the mining space. But yeah, the Tanami Mines is a big one. Northern Star is another mining company that we connect with. The APA Pipeline Authority Group, and we've just done 2 to 3 weeks with the Central Petroleum up at the gas plants up at sorry,
That dingo.
Palm Valley, the
or
Palm Valley gas plant, yeah.
Well,
So
mhm.
there's no doubt that we're gonna, in the future, with the exploration and stuff that's going on now, we're going to be wanted in that space at some stage, and also the talk of some other mines that may be closing, so we're gonna try our hardest to snag those and hopefully, like I said earlier, just to create small groups, even a community group that looks after their own area with the full backing of whoever wants to give them a chance, really. And as Ranger Work sits there, we'll give our expertise and our guidance of waking up in the morning and going at it. So I guess Ranger Works will become one of the inspiring ones in that space eventually, and hopefully a good guider.
Great, thank you. This next question is, what kinds of rehab options are best from Indigenous people's perspectives, and particularly in relation to mining voids? That's probably a Craig question.
It might be Steve's got a void.
Yeah,
I'm happy to jump in there, Craig, if you want a break.
No, you're right. I'll just chuck another 20 cents worth in. It's my goal is to eventually have a nursery of native plants at every ranger group and community that we can, and that's going to create like an extra 15 to 20 employed people that's actually don't work for us but provide us for. So it's the forever linking chain. Hopefully we can create something like that.
Mhm.
In my experience at Argyle, I think no matter how you put it, no matter how the approval plans are put in place, no matter the history, mining destroys country, and it affects people's culture, their thoughts about culture, their responsibilities, the decisions made by themselves or people before them, and how they continue to help and take responsibility for the future going forward. And in some cases, it's not possible to completely return, or in most cases, return things back to normal. So I think it's all about relationships. And if I was going to say what is the one thing you would do to ensure that people's level of understanding and acknowledgement and, I suppose, acceptance in a way, and finding that right balance between what can be feasibly done versus what is the right thing to do, it's about having the genuine partnership type relationship. So, and when you have a mining operation, you have a team and there's a good relationship with the community and so on, of course, things change. But what doesn't change is the community itself. The community is always here and the people are always here. So the focus on maintaining strong, enduring relationships helps people to understand and get through those processes, which can sometimes be really hurtful from a cultural perspective. So it just definitely comes down to relationships.
Great, yeah. So another question here is, most ranger program activity seems to deal with the landscape, but what is the approach to managing cultural heritage after the mine stops operating? Maybe we could go to Marcus or Lachlan.
Yeah, so we have a cultural heritage team separate from the land and sea team here at Weeper, and they manage all cultural heritage aspects. My team's heavily involved with that work down at Umrun. We do some relocations of artefacts and stuff once approvals have been given. But yeah, those issues are generally managed outside of this department. The decisions are made, and we can help execute any works that around the decisions that are made.
I guess probably just to add to that, there's a process via our agreements through the WACA that stipulate what we call site protection plans that really, outline exactly what needs to be done for each site. And as part of that, you know, some of whilst it's probably not closure in our aspect, but certainly progressive rehab, some of those decisions may be, you know, returning artefacts and scar trees back on country in the place where they were initially, you know, removed.
Carol, there was a good question about any state or federal government incentives or encouragement for mining companies to work with ranger groups during mine closure or through the life of the mine. And do you think this encouragement like that would be beneficial? I think that's because we haven't talked about government other than understanding that government funds some of the non-mining ranger groups. Government incentives, yeah. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon from our point of view, it'll be a vote getter. But you know, with the biggest space offering something, it's reassuring to people with not much, you know. So the opportunities to acquire funding that then leads to training, that then leads to a qualification. Yeah, the benefits are, you know, hundredfold really, and I think that the relationship with our government and things like that can find a level playing field with understanding each other too. You know, where that I guess that little void, that blank space in the middle is, you know. So I think working, you know, the same thing again, getting back to working together, walking together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, did you get any hold of any government incentives or funding for your program at Argyle?
Not directly in terms of the ranger team development, but for the other Indigenous business development on site, yes, we found it very beneficial to connect with the state government in this particular case, and they sidelined some funding which we matched along with the group, the trust entity that supports the traditional owners, to quarantine a chunk of funds to support Indigenous business development. But I think it's a massive opportunity for government to work more closely with mining companies to promote this sort of stuff, because I just know from my background in the ranger teams, there is always, you know, as Craig's been talking about, there's always a push for ranger teams to move from being totally government funded to increasingly get more fee for service work and build that capability and capacity. In Western Australia, for example, we have the Mine Rehabilitation Fund, which is contributed to by mining companies, and it's an ideal opportunity, I believe, to target that some of that funding to go towards ranger teams to build capability to become the lead organisations to lead the ongoing, you know, the rehab, monitoring and maintenance, you know, working with mining companies and government on the abandoned mines, etc. I think there's definitely some opportunity there for collaboration.
This next question is about culturally safe workplaces. Have you seen or used any supporting materials to create a more safe and culturally sort of inclusive workplace for traditional owners?
I guess here in the centre, there's, you know, the culturally appropriation to site, even just to a site visit, and to have the correct people with us. Yeah, once again, the benefits there are as a two-way street once again, to learning our view of actually where we are and what's about to happen, I guess, and then how do we live and guide ourselves through that in the modern aspect, as well as still respecting our knowledge of yesterday. It's quite a windy road, but I think, yeah, mining and stuff like that is very intense, and the starting of those areas everything's pretty much set out then, and then as it starts to roll along and unfold itself, I guess we start to see and learn the different aspects of what everything involves. So we can, everyone out here always wants to be a ranger. You can't be one forever, but but you can extend it by using your time in a ranger group to acquire some further knowledge through learning and study and stuff like that. I think we have to really target our school leavers quite a bit nowadays, and give them that sort of guidance. To this job is available. It's just going to take a little bit longer for you to get there. So, but the cultural appropriation is, sometimes we just say, no, we're just talking to old people first. They want to talk, So, and then of course we get to the blocks where like, well, we don't want that person or entity to come into this area until it's cleaned properly and so forth like that. So you can't speak highly enough of that process, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's a big part of Marcus's job, hey, to create a culturally safe workplace and clues around that. How have you approached that and keeping your team intact? And
yeah, look, it's just been mindful of some of those things that are going on in the community. Like one thing we find is, being such a small team, there is that community connection down there. If, say, for instance, there's a death in the community, often it'll impact the whole team. And you just need to be mindful of that and treat it with respect, tread carefully. We have areas down there at Umrun, like it's a traditional owner area at the camp, where, there's a fireplace and people can go down there and just sit and talk. So that's a really nice space for those guys to go and engage with other people, working down there. And we do use that bit as well, the opportunity I mentioned earlier around the turtle monitoring. We do turtle releases, like when we excavate a nest, we'll bring the turtles back during the heat of the day, keep them in a cool area. And then on dark, we'll go down and release them. And we use that as a bit of an engagement opportunity. So we invite other team members, who are performing well to come down and join in that experience. And we get some really positive feedback from that. And that just goes to, bridge some of those borders, get over some of the hurdles that we encounter along the way. It's just.
Yeah. And Steve, Argyle's pretty famous for the Mantha ceremony. That's part of that culturally safe workplace, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got 3 contractors that between the 3 of them, they provide us cross-cultural programs, a 1-day or overnight cross-cultural programs throughout the dry season from April through to September. And at least every month during those dry season months, there's a Mantha ceremony that happens on site, and all new workers must attend to become sort of culturally safe working on site. It's to make people culturally safe on site. And if there's any issues, any concerns that people have, they can't sleep well at night, sometimes people get spooked by things or whatever, we call out the Mantha providers to come smoke the room, etc., to make sure people are culturally safe on site. So it's been a strong connection with the local, the traditional owners here for as long as the place has been around. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I'm just going to jump to another question. And this one here is about the closure plans. So what are your thoughts on how mines can make their closure and rehabilitation plans more accessible to local Indigenous communities and improve involvement early in the planning consultation process?
Well, I'd see it as a before and after. Like, if we'd be working with a blank canvas to begin with, and fortunately enough, we can take a photo from every angle and under the ground and from the sky and whichever else, and try to redevelop that goal or that image that we seen 30 years ago. And I think a lot of our lives are like that. We're trying to get back to 30 years ago. and it was a good space, you know. So I think we, you know, we sort of look at the landscape as like that again. So, and if you know, like if we're not in it, it can't thrive, you know, unless it sees us respecting it. And that's people from all over the world, you know. We somewhere along the line we sometimes forget these things, that, you know, what, like I said earlier, that belonging of belonging in that space, and a lot of younger people are looking back to the past now to you know, recoup some knowledge, because they see it, that it's going fast, really fast now, and language and all those types of things are, you know, and some are in critical, you know, shape and things like that. So yeah, can't push that forward enough.
Steve, closure plans, I think, in my sort of limited knowledge, is like a living document. It's meant to, you know, progress as the mine progresses. So is this possible to share more of the earlier plans and as they progress over time with the community to show where it's at?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And there's been a lot written about that recently in all sorts of forums around closure is something that starts at the start of the mine. And Rio are working really closely with traditional owners for the Winu project in the desert, you know, southeast of Broome at the moment, around the copper deposit there, to talk about closure and what it might look like. That's before the mine even gets approval to start. And I think during the operational phase of the mine, know how long it goes for, I think it has to be at least an annual check-in to say, right, this is what we're planning when we close this mine, and this is what the timeline looks like now, and this is what we're thinking it's going to look like. What do you think? Getting the feedback and making sure that's documented and maintained, a level of communication. And then minimum 5 years out from the planned closure date, potentially 7 years out even, is starting to intensify those conversations so that traditional owners in the local community are fully engaged and across all of the detail, so they have a real say in what the closure plan ends up being. Yeah, and I think that will benefit the mining company as well in the long run, because relinquishment is a challenge, because relinquishment can take a long time, and a mining company doesn't want to hang on to all these pieces of land all over the world forever. They want to get in, they want to mine, create the benefits for society through that mining, make profit obviously, and benefits for community, but then they're not landholders for eternity. So relinquishment is a really important, critical element that you're not going to achieve in a timely manner unless you had that long lead time through engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think we've got time for just one more question, and we'll go with Lockie and Marcus for this one. How are you sharing your learnings and lessons with other mine sites and tenements moving towards closure around the country, and how receptive are other sites to interpreting Indigenous ranger programs in their current future plans? I've got chats coming through, so I can't see the content.
No, good. I think in terms of sharing, that there's been varying levels of success. Obviously, the work that the Land and Sea program here has done with Argyle and Steve is testament to some really good sharing. More, you know, locally, we work quite closely with a couple of the local ranger groups and have had varying levels of success in terms of the outcomes, you know, capability building. You know, each site has its own unique set of challenges and climate in which we work with. So there's no one size fits all for what works for us may not be the best outcome elsewhere. But you know, there's certain aspects that in the Cape context that other mining companies outside of Rio, you know, we share common threads of aspects of the ranger programs, like seed collection for rehab, and you know, those learnings, they're not corporate knowledge, you know, they're well shared across, you know, different companies, you know, mining the same commodities. So it is important that, you know, the more these programs are really embraced and rolled out across the industry, the more that we need to share, regardless of internal or external to our own business.
Yeah, one way is third-party researchers coming and documenting what those lessons are, and yeah, shaping some of that material so that's available and digestible for other groups, other people. So I'll just stick that in while you're talking about lessons learned.
Thanks for the idea.
Great. Thank you so much for all of your wise words. I'm just going to do a bit of a summary now and just going to head back to the PowerPoint. So let me know if you can see
The last slide. Yep.
the
The
last
next slide.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. So we heard a range of things, focus and investment on how to work together to build better outcomes. But there are many challenges. It's a bit of a different world for a range of programs to work across the two areas. There's quite a lot of policies and rules in place that aren't in other range of programs that exist in mining programs. There is information on how to develop relationships, capacity and capability building that's being done. We've heard a bit about that. The individuals that hold a lot of the responsibilities, the rangers that are working in the community, they hold a lot of responsibility because they are connecting with the traditional owners as well, but they are also learning lots of leadership skills in the meantime, and that's being developed. Yeah, we've looked at what is the plan to hand over from the mining companies to the traditional owners and how we can build those relationships better within the community. I think that's one of the key things is the building of the relationships, because as it was said, that community relationships are vital and they're going to be there forever. So community is not going away. We need to make sure that those relationships are fostered and built upon and are stable. We need to make sure that there is a level playing field and that we all can walk together and develop the future. So I think what we've heard is that there are personal, family and community impact as well. This all kind of leads us into the next webinar. In the next webinar, we've invited people to talk about ranger works on the ground. We're hoping that we can have the Canadian experience showcased. So we're really looking forward to the next session. We've got our newsletters up on the screen. You can use the QR code to link to those webinars will be promoted through there. So if you join the newsletters, you can also access these better and you'll know when they're coming out. We've got nominations for our CRC Time Award that's happening. That's the last QR code on the screen. Just a quick plug about those awards. We've got the Community Champion, the Distinguished Paper and Outstanding Student Awards. They're returning this year. So we're pleased, CRC Time is pleased to introduce the new Outstanding Researcher Communication and New Ways Forward Award. These awards will recognise individual projects and collaborations and or organisations who have made outstanding contributions to CRC Time's research portfolio. So if you do want to nominate, please use that. Nominations must be received by 28th of June, I believe. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of our session today. We're going to bring it to a close. Thank you to the panelists. Really appreciate your time and hoping that everyone can join us for the next one, which we'll promote shortly, and we'll have you back then. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Craig, Steve, Marcus.
Thank you.
Lockie.
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Nice to meet
opportunity
you
to
guys.
share.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.